there's this real fear of something going wrong. We just got a puppy, and I think almost every day, like, what if she were to die? Like, what if she were to die in my care? It's like this love translates into a fear, actually, of losing this person that I'm responsible for, or this being that I'm responsible for, where it's like actually a fear, like you love so much you actually fear losing it.
With my cat, I see it's often linked to the money system, where I cannot sustain her with the things she needs. I cannot get rid of the fear before I see it's linked to the money system and walk through that. I have a cat of 6 years old, and I walked a lot of those fears with her. So it was quite cool. She assisted me to see the point of the money system and get it back to myself and stop that.
I noticed in relation to my love towards my son, like the care, the unconditional giving and caring that I have for him, and it really comes down to my own self, like who I am as me, and then as his mom. I'm part of moms groups, and we talk a lot about emotional situations that we go through, and I've noticed that it's really about that emotional stability. So if we look at love, how it is defined these days as being very emotional, then in motherhood, it's really about the stability, like no emotions, no ups and downs. That's not what the baby needs. It really needs us present without our minds going somewhere else. So even this redefinition of love is really important in our relationship with our children. What I'm learning, and this is also to do with the relationship, let's say, with my partner, it is to trust the other person as I trust myself. And that point of trust, like the way I trust my baby in situations like when he's eating, or even when he's doing something, I trust him. Obviously, he has his own limitations at the moment. He's only 7 months old, but there is this trust of as an equal to me. It has the same value as I am. I'm not superior. I may know more things, but I'm standing equal to him, and that trust point makes a big difference in our dynamic. So that is also something that is helping me to redefine this love for him, and with my partner as well. So it's kind of it's an interesting how the process is kind of expanding. As we said in the beginning, we can expand so much more when we are aware of ourselves, we work on ourselves, and then we're able to give it to others.
I began to see the problem with that when I was about 15, 14, in my young teens, because I was in love with a guy at school, and I found it very stressing that I felt that all the time, but I couldn't get rid of it, so I stayed in love with that guy for a long, long time, till I did not see him anymore, and it passed away. So after that, I was a bit, let's say, aware or anxious to get to be in love again. So I retreated myself from falling in love. I kept on doing that, obviously, because I didn't know how that mechanic worked. So until like 4 years ago, I met this guy again, where I fell head over heels. And that was when I could start, because of the Destiny tools and the Destiny material, to see what I was doing within myself. I could have the feeling, I could see the feeling and have some sort of a common sense at the same time, so I could look at it, how the feeling was and what it made me do. And still upon this day, I think it's very hard to see the feeling. I do something, I have an action, or I speak words or share words with this person, and then I get the feedback from him, so to say, to see what mistake I did. Yeah, it happened. Yeah, just this week. It's like a trial of error and error to see where I'm still in this feeling, or whether I'm in common sense, like myself, true to myself. So this is one of my biggest things to work through, and I'm still in process, and so much to share about it.
When Andrew and I started establishing our agreement, we were long distance, which really was such a blessing, because this woman in love was like 90 miles per hour forward, let's go for it, like it was all engines a go. And being long distance, I couldn't move that way. It was so slow, and it was excruciating, but it was so supportive for me. It was so specific for me, because it forced me to slow down. I couldn't move in it like I always moved in it. And what it then did for me was show me this drive that was kind of pushing me, and I was able to examine and observe it a little bit more and understand it a little bit more, and what was actually moving me into the agreement were these feelings of wanting love and wanting those experiences, and I couldn't. And so that was really great, actually. It forced me to become practical with love.
We are slowing down. In fact, we are all slowing down, and that's the way we can see and take a look at it. That's what I hear from you. The same, really. And you were able to have an agreement with Andrew, where I did not get to that level with this man. So it was quite not an emotional roller coaster, but a feeling roller coaster. And now I'm getting to the emotional side, of course, because it's all based in fears, where we have to take a look at. And where would you say that you are now in this process of making love practical? Do you still have that you are flying away in feelings?
Not so much. No, it's the relationship that I'm currently in is grounded. The foundation is communication and respect, in terms of self-respect, and living in a self-honest way. So the decisions that I make in the relationship are based on my self-honesty and what I am okay with, myself living and doing and being. That was a process to get to, because my previous relationship was nothing like that. My whole previous relationship was based on the idea of what a relationship is and the way I should be, not knowing myself really at all, or what was important with me. And when you get in that sort of a situation and you're chasing after the carrot, there's something you want, you tend to compromise yourself along the way and lose yourself, and put aside the things that are important to you. And then the insecurities come up, and the jealousy and the questioning. And for me, I didn't trust myself to do good by myself, so I never trusted the other person to do good by me either. But a really interesting point that I noticed Christina made is how she said how she was going forward quickly into this relationship. To me, I found that very interesting, because the things that are important to us, self-honestly, I've found, are the show in our movement. So for some of us, the relationships are important. They can be incredibly supportive for us. What I'm seeing in myself is my relationships have made me the person that I am, in terms of the material I have to work with within the relationship. I wouldn't if I was out on my own, I wouldn't have come as far as I have come today if it weren't for, even the massive life-changing moments where you're suddenly alone after being with someone for almost 20 years. But I grew from that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of me inside of me that knows this is how I'm going to grow the most, is from being in a relationship. And so that's what I move towards.
So that's where I have to stand with me and as me. And yeah, that's not my tendency. My tendency is to to wiggle, like I had a scoliosis, so I wiggle and like a real snake. So yeah, to avoid my fears and not see my fears, and yeah, that's what I've become aware of. And now it's the time. So to be able to stand, because we've parted a year ago. So yeah, I could reflect a lot on myself and my whole life, how all things are continuously the same within me. I'm now like progressing in some way. So it's cool to hear that that it is possible, because that's what we do and what you did as well.
During that time when you're on your own, that is the prime time to work on your self-relationship. And once you get that down, man, and you know who you are, and you know what you stand for, and you're confident with yourself, and you're not looking to get anything from the other person because you've already given it to yourself.
Yeah.
The whole dynamic of the relationship changes. You're not needy.
In being in love, you want to be with him or her, huh?
Yeah.
And instead of being with yourself. So being with yourself first, and not continually wanting to be with the other. So that the long distance story, like Christina told, that's within a long distance the relationships that that's
can definitely be places where you hide. But that's where it's important to define these things for ourselves, because we've been given the definitions, but they don't play out in reality in the best possible way for everyone. They often lead to a lot of consequences. And so it's definitely important. And the way Andrew and I, when we got together, I had been on a year's mission prior to that. I was looking, okay, who am I gonna? I was dating people. I was on the prowl. I was in predatory mode. I was like looking for my prey. And I realized, oh my God, woman, reel it back, because where are you? What are you doing? You're looking outside of yourself for love. But what about you? Where are you? And so I turned inward and I just stopped all that, because I realized I was running from myself. I was looking for someone to be something that I needed for myself, but I didn't realize I needed for myself. Mm-hmm. So I turned inward, and I really just made me priority. My relationship with me, that is the point I need to establish and root for myself. And 2 months later is when Andrew came about, and that point opened up. And I don't think that if I was looking in the starting point I was looking from, that would have never worked out with Andrew, because that's not where he was. It's definitely important, to define these things for ourselves. We're nurturers, we're givers, we are providers. But if we don't define that stuff first for ourselves, how we're able to do that for ourselves, us doing that for others is always an act of separation. It's not actually self-honest.
Christina and Carrie, those agreements that you are walking with your partners, do you have like you were saying the definition of love within it, and are you writing those things out on a paper, or how do you share that with each other? How do you come from being in love to that agreement?